In this video, we're going to explore how to use charts. We'll be working with a finance tracker as our example. Before we start, you can download this template for free using the link in the description, so feel free to grab it. All right, let's get into it. First, we're going to open the database properties from one of its pages. Before setting up a chart, we need to extract the values for the X and Y axes. In this example, we'll start by showing monthly expenses using the total spent each month. To build a chart that shows how expenses change month by month, we first need a property that lists all the months of the year on the X-axis. To do that, create a new formula property and use it to extract the month from an existing date. In this case, we're pulling the month from the transaction date. This formula formats the date so it only displays the month. On the Y-axis, we only want to show the total amount spent. Since this database includes both expenses and income, we need a formula that keeps the value when it's an expense and sets it to 0 when it's income. This lets the chart focus only on spending. Since this chart is meant to show expenses, don't forget to set the currency in the Properties menu. Otherwise, the chart won't display the correct format. Here, we're selecting US dollars, but you can choose any currency supported by Notion. Now click the button to add a new database view. In the Options menu, select Chart, then choose Edit Chart. Now we need to select the properties we created so they appear on the chart. The horizontal What to Show option controls the X-axis. Since we want to display the months of the year, choose the property named X-axis. You can see the months showing up, but they're not grouped correctly yet, so let's continue. Next, under the vertical What to Show option, select the property named Y-axis, which represents the expense value for each transaction. Make sure to choose the sum calculation so the chart adds all the individual amounts together. The X-axis values are sorted alphabetically by default. Make sure to hide the No X-axis group, which contains any transactions without a date or month, since we don't want them in the chart. Then, manually reorder the months in the Options menu, so they follow the correct chronological order and display properly on the chart. And that's it. We've set up a clean, simple chart. The key to building charts in Notion is knowing exactly what you want to show. Otherwise, it's easy to get mixed up. The tool itself is straightforward, but the real challenge is organizing your properties so everything displays the right way. Feel free to try out different colors, sizes, legends, and layouts to match your preferences. There are lots of options to explore. Here, we'll add labels to both axes to clarify what information the chart is showing. However, the axis labels aren't ideal. You can rename them in the Properties menu. Just go back to the properties you created for the chart and give them more appropriate names. Now, we're going to make things a bit more advanced. This first example covered the basics of Notion charts. First, duplicate the Expenses property, which was the y-axis in the previous chart. In this new property, update the formula to include both expenses and income. The goal here is to display grouped data, multiple values for the same x-axis point based on a specific category. To do this, create a new property called Type to distinguish between expenses and income. In short, we'll show both expenses and income on a single chart for a cross-analysis, letting you easily see your account balance and quickly understand whether you're running a deficit or surplus each month. Just like before, select the newly renamed Month property for the horizontal axis. For the vertical axis, choose the newly created Y-axis property. This gives the total of both expenses and income. To separate the two types on the chart, click the Grouped By option and select the Type property. Now our data is grouped by category, showing both expenses and income in a single chart. In the Layout options, the Not Stacked setting separates the values. For this type of chart, the line view works best to clearly and dynamically show the changes in expenses and income over time. Now that you understand how grouping works, you can group your data using any property in your database, depending on what you want to show. We're going to do the same thing again, but this time with the budget, so the chart displays expenses organized by budget category and by month. For the x-axis, we keep the same property, but for the y-axis this time, select expenses, since the budgets in this database are logically tied only to spending. To make everything easier to read, switch the layout to vertical bars. Then, under the Grouped By option, select the Category property, which represents the budget. This property was already included in the original template. This feature will work even if your data is organized into multiple subcategories. And that's it. Your transactions are now organized by month and grouped by budget within each month. Hovering over the chart will reveal the breakdown for every month. For this final example, we're going to see how to use charts to build a clear and cohesive dashboard. We'll create 3 charts, one for income, one for expenses, and one for the account balance. This gives you an instant snapshot of your financial situation. You can adapt this setup for many other scenarios, like tracking a stock portfolio or monitoring sales in an online shop. After duplicating the expenses property, rename it to incomes and adjust the formula to show only income. The balance property will calculate the difference between income and expenses. Now, let's go back to the main dashboard to arrange the charts. At the top of the page, divide the space into 3 columns, placing one chart in each column. Create a linked database view from the one used to build the charts. After selecting one of the existing views, go back to the Database Settings menu to change the layout. Finally, choose the properties you want to display based on what you need to show. And there you have it. With a few simple property adjustments and smart data management, we've easily created a complete dashboard.